Oftentimes when creating web apps, you'll need to create interactive page elements that look like buttons. Using a link and some CSS, you can make these buttons look as intricate or as simple as you want. Here we have a basic HTML document, and as you can see, we've already included our CSS so that when we start writing our CSS, we'll be ready to go. And the first thing we're going to do is create a wrapper div. So we'll go ahead and just create a div and give it the ID of wrapper. And this will just be to center our content on the page. And the next thing we're going to do is create a link, and we'll give it the href of # or £, because it doesn't actually need to go anywhere for this particular example. We'll give it the ID of signup, but you can give it any ID that you want. And we'll go ahead and close it. And then inside of this div, we just need to put some text. So I'm going to call this button sign up, but again, you can call this button whatever you want. So if we go ahead and switch over to Google Chrome and refresh the browser, you can see that we now have this very basic link that says sign up. Now, this is going to be the basis for our button, and really our button isn't a button at all. It's just going to be a link, and we can style this using CSS. So we're done for our markup, and we need to just switch over to our CSS document and get started. First thing we're going to do is remove any margins on our body, and this is just some basic reset so that we don't have to worry about browsers adding any kind of margin and pushing the button away from the sides. Next, we're going to style our wrapper, and we'll give it a width of 960 pixels and set the margin to 0 on the top and bottom and auto on the left and right sides to go ahead and center it. So if we switch back to Google Chrome and refresh the browser, this link is text aligned left, but really all of the content is centered on the page. You can see that it's moved away from the left side just a little bit. So let's go ahead and switch back to TextMate, and we'll go ahead and select our sign up link using the ID selector. The first thing we want to do is just go ahead and style the text a little bit. So we'll set the font weight to bold. We'll set the font family to Helvetica, Arial, and Sans Serif. Of course, these are all just stylistic decisions, and you can use whatever font sizes or font families that you want. We'll set the text decoration to none because this is a link and we probably want to remove the underline for the button. We'll set the display to block because the display type for links by default is set to inline, and we want this to really take up some space on the page. And we'll set the width to 300 pixels. Next, we'll set the text align to center so that our button is centered on the page. And then we'll go ahead and give it some margin. We'll give it a margin of 100 pixels on the top and bottom just to separate it from the top and bottom of the page. And we'll give it a left and right margin of auto so that it is centered on the page. So here's an important distinction to make. The text align here is actually just centering the text inside of the button. The margin here will actually be centering the button on the page. So next, let's go ahead and set a font size of 1.7 ems. And at this point, we should switch back to the browser and refresh to see where we're at. So now you can see that we have some text that is much larger. It's in the center of the page, and it's no longer underlined. So let's go ahead and turn this into a button. I'm going to go ahead and switch back to TextMate here. And we're going to set a background, and we're going to use CSS3 so we can use multiple backgrounds. The first background is going to come from our images directory, and in the images directory, I have an image called noise.png. So we need to jump out of the CSS directory and then into the images directory and select noise.png. And we're going to set a gradient on our button, and this noise PNG will just add some really nice texture and depth to our gradient. So next, we'll go ahead and add our gradient, and we'll start out with the Mozilla style. So we'll say Moz linear gradient, and we'll start at the top. And I have some very specific colors picked out here, but of course you can pick out whatever colors you want. This is sort of a blue color, which you'll see in just a moment. And we'll end at 100% there. And then next, we need to do a very similar background for WebKit. So we'll go ahead and change this over to the WebKit vendor prefix. And of course, we put linear as an actual value when using the WebKit format. So we'll go ahead and remove what we have here and say linear, start at the left top, work our way down to the left bottom. And our first color stop will start at 0%. And of course, it will use the same color that we used in our Mozilla styling. And then our next color stop will end at 100%. And again, we'll use this other color, just like that. Then we should set a final background color fallback for browsers that don't support gradients. So they'll just see a flat color. So if we go ahead and save that out, switch back to the browser and refresh, you can see that our button now has this nice teal looking background. Now, there's lots of other things we need to do here, like add padding, a color to the text, and a few text shadows. So far, we've added some of the basic styling for our button. In the next video, we'll finish things up.